Welcome to the Unstuck and Unstoppable podcast, where we help you move your life forward. If you've ever found yourself struggling with negative thoughts and or negative thinking, you're listening to the right episode of our podcast today. I'm your host, Jim Kyles, and I'm here with Jolea Garza.
Hey, come on, episode 6. This is such a great topic. I'm really excited to dive into this.
So excited about this week. We've got a lot of great content that we're going to talk about, and really helping people have right thinking.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I think if we could fix this and if we could focus on this for a couple of weeks, I think it's really going to change some people's lives.
It would change your life. Absolutely. And before we get into that, I do want to take just a moment. Got a lot of great things that are happening.
Such great feedback.
Such great feedback.
Also, just thinking about the Facebook community, for everybody who joins us on the Facebook community, we want to say what's up to our Facebook fam.
Yes.
Even wanted to just shout out Heather. So Heather in the Facebook community left a comment, and she just said that she's enjoying reading the book. She shared it with a coworker for her to read, and then she said she's enjoying the podcast, that she's loved what she's heard and is learning valuable life lessons.
Come on, that's so cool. And if you want to join the Facebook community, just go into the comments. You can click on it. It'll take you right there. She's talking about the book. She actually got a pre-released copy.
An advanced copy.
Yes, and that book that I wrote last year is coming out. It's coming out November 8th. I'm so excited. You'll be able to, you go to the website right now and you can get a pre-order for that book so that when it comes out, it's delivered right to your door.
Yeah, get that copy earlier. It's
so
be so
hope you
effective.
do that. Hey, we also got some reviews. If you've been listening and you're enjoying the content of this podcast, I'm asking you, would you rate and review the podcast? It helps us get the word out. But a couple of people here, we have Smart Chick 17. She says, highly motivated. This podcast dives into areas where we all get stuck from time to time. Let this excellent communicator shine as the light into your life and illuminate the areas where you may need some light. That is so good. Thank you for such great reviews. Also, Amber writes, inspiring, love listening to the first episode of the morning as I started my day, really motivating, inspiring, looking forward to more.
I love that.
Yeah. So, hey, just keep giving us reviews and rating it. We're so grateful for that. When you do it again, it just helps us get the word out and allows us to continue to make an impact.
Our goal is not to just put out great content, but also to have great community. And so we want to connect with you. We want to hear from you and see you on this journey.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I also want to say welcome to those of you that are watching through YouTube.
Yeah.
Today's our first episode to film.
We're so excited. This is so cool. We want you to know that if you're watching us.
That's right. You're watching us. We're hanging out in my office, and we just decided, hey, this is the week we're able to get the video going. And so we're excited. Leave comments and share it on YouTube as well. Now, today we are talking about thoughts, the power of thinking. Really, life's battlefield is not on the outside; it's on the inside. And it's in our minds. That the greatest battlefield you'll ever face is internal. It's what you're thinking. It's what you're thinking when you're not thinking.
Oh yeah,
we talked about that last week.
Subconscious
subconscious.
Yeah, and just how that drives. A lot of people live on autopilot, but it's so funny. A lot of the things that we fight, a lot of what we experience in life, really doesn't happen externally.
No.
But it's all about perception. We talked about being sabotaged
right.
We talked about sabotage from within, and it really does happen within. So after we talked about paradigms and how paradigms can impact the way you perceive and see things, but after those paradigms are set, then all of the battle goes into your mind, because every experience you now have is filtered through and processed through your brain the way that you see and experience things.
Well, you talked about living on the autopilot. I love studies, and I read a study by Marks and Spencer. They determined 96% of 3,000 people that were surveyed were living their life on autopilot.
Wow.
96%.
Wow.
That is unbelievable. And so what does that mean? When I'm thinking about autopilot, I'm thinking it's without much thought.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of change. I'm not doing anything different. You ever heard I'm stuck in a rut?
Yeah.
So it's like
You're
I'm doing the same thing on a Monday. I'm doing
the
same thing on a Tuesday. And you and I talked about, and we're going to do a podcast on this, the processes of our life.
Right.
But your life is perfectly designed to get the benefits and the results that you're getting right now.
Right. Exactly. That's such a great,
so
I love
whatever
that.
you're getting now,
whatever you're putting out is what you're getting.
You're getting it back.
Yeah.
It's because of the way you have structured your life. It's the way you think. It's the way you behave. And we're here to help you get unstuck.
Yeah. Can I just say, I think 96%, that's pretty sad. You know, I just think as I'm looking at that number, I just think, man, so many people aren't making forward progress. They're not looking at what's next because they're just living life on autopilot, you know, and I would hope personally that I don't live my whole life on autopilot, but I'm constantly looking for small ways to get better, to grow. You know, I've been meditating on healthy things grow, right? And so if you're living on autopilot, are you healthy, or are you just stagnant? Are you just existing?
Well, and some of that is probably from life's traumas, the things that have happened to them. Some of that is you're overwhelmed, which I think we've all been there. Life happens, we get overwhelmed, we kind of just tune out, we zone out. We're just trying to cope, and we don't want you to cope.
Right.
God doesn't want you to cope. God wants you to advance and to move forward. And he created you with a purpose and for a purpose. And one of the greatest truths that I learned is we don't get stuck in life because of what happens to us, but because of what happens in us.
So true.
And so no matter what happens on the outside, it's what I do on the inside. And for some, bad things happen and they shut down.
Yeah.
They stopped. They paused. They started to cope. They're just trying to make it and exist. And it's like, no, bad things can happen. Tough times will come. Not if they come, they will come.
They will come. Yeah, absolutely.
I heard a speaker, Andy Stanley, is a great pastor of a great church, and he said it's you're either going into a storm, you're in the middle of a storm, or you're coming out of a storm.
I was like, those are the only three options. Are you sure?
So it's not like bad things may happen, could happen, tough things may happen, could. No, they're gonna happen.
Yeah.
So either you're about to go into it, or you're in the middle of it,
right,
or you're coming out of it.
Right.
And every one of them demands a response internally. Otherwise, what will happen is you end up getting stuck.
Yep.
And we don't want that to happen. We don't want our life to get stuck. We don't want to be on autopilot. If we could do anything, you know, JoJo, what I would do is I would shake people. It's like, wake up.
Yes.
Wake up. And I wonder if on the inside of them, there's been this lie that's been believed that I don't have anything to offer.
Right.
But the truth is, I just want you to hear this. You have something great to offer to the world.
Good. Yeah.
You're not here just to buy time. You're not here just to exist. And so we want to wake up the greatness inside of you.
Yeah.
We want to wake up what God purposed and planned for your life, and then help you to move that you advance your life forward.
Yeah. I just think everybody also has to know, not only is there greatness on the inside of you, but if you can tap into that, there is greatness in your future.
Yes.
You know, I just keep thinking about, I love the story that you shared a few weeks ago. You talked about how you kept having blowouts on the road. You guys stopped at Papacitos, but you were headed to the beach, right? The beach is the greatness. And I think that for so many people, there are future things that could happen and some really great things that you could do. But your initial reaction was, let's just stay where we are and it'll be okay. And I think that's where autopilot happens, because the easiest thing to do would be to settle.
That's right.
But that's why we have to work on this battlefield in the mind, because if we can get past that, if we decide, I'm determined not to settle in this place, and it happens in your mind, if you can get that resolve back, you can make it to the beach.
That's
right.
You
can make it to that beautiful,
whatever
the beautiful, whatever that destination is, you can make it.
100%. Well, and I couldn't agree more. And here's what I would tell you. Here's a big thought that I want you to write down. If you're driving, just think about it, catalog it, put it in your Apple Notes. Thoughts can be barriers or building blocks.
Wow.
Thoughts, what we think, is either a barrier or it's a building block.
Wow.
So thoughts govern our actions. They become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Right.
You know, whatever you think about, you become.
Wow.
There's a passage in Proverbs. James Allen actually wrote a book, As a Man Thinketh, So Is He.
Yeah.
And so the thought is, man, whatever I'm thinking about is what. In other words, let me say it like this: you are today what you were thinking about yesterday.
Wow. Yep.
You will be tomorrow what you allow yourself to think about today.
Yeah.
And so is your mind, the battlefield that's taking place, is it advancing you forward, or has it become a barrier for forward progress?
Right. And I think maybe some people would argue, hey, it's not my mind, you know, it's really just life and everything coming at me. But I think that's where the paradigm shifts, even with failure.
Right.
You know, in the places where you feel like you've messed up the most, there's a phrase that's often coined, it's called failing forward.
Right.
So where some people feel like failure is the end all be all, when you can really begin to tweak and change how you see and what your perspective is, you can take every failure as an opportunity to improve and grow and move forward. I had to learn personally, I feel like I probably told you, it's at first I would be so afraid to just make a mistake. Like, I can't make a mistake. I can't mess up. I have to do everything right. And I was trapped in my mind because I was so afraid to mess up. And so it was perfection. But when I decided it's okay if I make a mistake, because I'm going to learn from that mistake and move forward. And so we've probably had conversations where I'm like, I'm going to make mistakes and that's okay, but I'm going to get better. And I promise that I'm going to continue to grow. And I think that's the win.
Wow.
And it's all in your perception, your perspective, and that all comes from your mind.
I love it. I think it was John Maxwell that coined that "we fell forward." I know at least his book, but it's interesting because we say often we don't fail, we grow. Mm-hmm. And so failure is really about growth. Right. And we learn what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. And we have a thing, in fact, you and I were just meeting the other day. You serve as the executive pastor of this organization that we run. For those of you that don't know, we have a church called Anchor Bend Church. It's in Richmond, Texas. And Jolea serves as the executive pastor, which means you make basically the head of all decisions here.
Absolutely.
You help to form and fashion and everything that happens. And you and I were just talking about how we have to break a mentality. We've come out of this global pandemic.
Yes.
And out of the pandemic, there really almost has been a permission-based thought process that's been pushed on people subconsciously in a way that's like, hey, do we have permission to do this? Can we do that? And it's not even the culture of our church or what we've done in the past, but I think that the mentality of fear and caution,
second guessing, you almost had to second guess every decision because life had changed so much. Is it the same, or do we move forward the same way we used to? So we were asking a lot of questions.
And one of the things you and I talked about is we want to create a culture where we ask for forgiveness, not permission.
I love it. Do it and then ask for forgiveness. I live by that.
That's right. Well, and what are we saying? We're saying, look, we may fail, but let's fail forward. Let's fail with progress. I don't want people walking around asking for permission. Can we? No. We're going to fail forward.
Yeah.
And so we got to make sure that we are having the right thoughts. And it's okay. It's not if we fail, we're going to fail.
Right.
But we choose to keep wrapping our thoughts around the right things, going forward in the right way, and then making sure that they don't become negative or inward, all about us focused, but they're outward focused. And we're going to continue to get the right thinking on the right topics to move our life forward. And if we're not careful, what will happen is your thoughts become very limited and trapped. And it's so easy to listen to all the prognosticators out there and all of the negativity.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to remember, it's negativity that sells. Positive things don't sell. But when it's negative things and bad things. And so all we ever hear on the news are bad things. And so if you're not careful, that negativity, all the bad, it begins to be a part of our life and our filter. Wow. And the enemy, the devil, will trick us. He'll cause us to believe something is impossible when it's not impossible.
Wow.
It is possible. We've just got to change our framework. We've got to change the way we think about it and go from hopeless to hopeful.
So good. Yeah. And I think, you talk about the story of Paul in your book. So I love that because really Paul's perspective, he's such a great example, even if you maybe don't study the Bible and you may not even be a believer, but the story of Paul is so cool because he knows he's on mission to share with the world about Jesus Christ and being saved by him. And so he is living his life going on mission, and yet every time you read about Paul, he's being stoned, like literally rock stone at him. He's being shipwrecked. He's being bitten by snakes, and he's experiencing all of these terrible things. And he's so funny because then in the scripture, he says, well, I press forward towards the goal, and I can do all things through Christ. And it's just all positive. He's like, I know what it's like to have lack and know what it's like to have plenty. And it's just, he's continually speaking life over himself, even in the midst of some things that we would never expect. I don't think I'll ever be stoned.
No.
But at the same time, Paul was experiencing those things and still found the way to have a positive perspective. And I think that's our goal here is to work through how in the midst of all of the things that probably would get us stuck in the past, how can we have such a great perspective, such a hopeful perspective that we're able to still be positive?
Well, and I think that's a great illustration of how things can happen to you but not cause you to be stuck.
Yeah.
It's not about what happens around us, but what happens in us. And then, thoughts being barriers, or they could be building blocks. It reminds me of the story. There's a story about a man named Roger Bannister.
Right.
Maybe you've heard of it or not if you're tuning in. And May 6th in 1954, Roger Bannister, he became the first man in history to run a mile in under 4 minutes.
That's incredible.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And nowadays, that doesn't seem as big of a feat because we've had people do it since then.
Yeah.
But what's amazing about his story is that no other runner before Roger Bannister in 1954 had ever broken the 4-minute mile. In fact, there were experts and scientists who had done studies that said it was physically impossible to break the 4-minute barrier. If you did, you would die.
Wow.
It was just physically impossible. And yet what was interesting is that you have this man, Roger Bannister, and he just refused to believe what even the experts were saying.
Right.
And he said, no, I can do this. I believe I can do it. They've done an interview with him, of course, many interviews since then. And he said it was just a normal day. He said, I got in the rhythm and there was something inside of me. I just felt like I could do it today. And he ran and he ran and he broke that 4-minute mile. But what is more interesting to me than that is that within 10 years of Roger Bannister breaking that record, listen to this, 336 other runners had broken that 4-minute mile record as well. Now, 336 other runners in 10 years. Now, that may not sound significant, but for 3,000 years, as far back as statisticians kept track and field records, nobody had ever.
It was thought to be impossible.
It was thought to be impossible. Right. But you have someone that said, I'm not going to listen to what they say is impossible. I believe I can do it. There's something inside of him. Can you imagine? I mean, he was running and practicing and training, but something inside of him said, I got this.
Right.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's those of you that are listening to the podcast or maybe you're watching and there's something inside of you where people have said, no, you can't do that. It's impossible.
Wow.
Nobody's ever done that. I want to encourage you to get your hopes up. I want to encourage you to ask God, to say, God, is this something you put inside of me? And together we want you to break every record, to break every limitation that others have said is impossible. And why don't you be a trailblazer? Do what others said was impossible to do.
I think that's so great. You said something in there, even with what others have said about you. I think a lot of times we've allowed just maybe small words of what other people have spoken about us, thought about us, mentioned about us to become thoughts. Right. And we often say, some of your thoughts are like a tape recorder.
Right.
And so we've allowed those to just become tape recorders playing in the back of our mind, in the subconscious. And so we can't allow others to limit what God has called us to do.
That's right.
And I think that's so great. That's such a great illustration.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if your limitations are not physical limitations or barriers, but mental limitations and mental barriers. So Mark 9:23 says, all things are possible to them that believe. So it's like, God, I want to believe.
Yeah.
God, I want to believe. And so what is it that you need to believe for? Look, maybe you've been limited or trapped in your thinking in your marriage.
Yeah.
Maybe here you are, you're a young professional. You both have great careers. You got married. You thought everything was going to be perfect. The big house and the white picket fence. And here you are, you're in year 2, maybe you're in year 3. And now you're realizing how difficult marriage is, because all marriage is difficult. If you're having problems, can I just tell you?
Relationships are difficult.
Relationships are tough. And what I want to encourage you with, maybe you found yourself, and people say, well, it's okay. We live in a different age and day. Marriages just don't work.
Right. And that's really what the world would
say
about marriages.
Yeah. Yep. Change. Find you a new one.
Yeah.
But
Trade them in.
Trade them in. But here's what I know. Whatever you don't heal through in this relationship, you're going to have to heal through in the next relationship. Or you're going to bounce from relationship to relationship. Where have you been limited or trapped in your thinking? Maybe it was in your education. Maybe you're here and you got a bachelor's degree and you're like, man, I went to 4 years of college, but nobody has ever gotten their master's degree or their doctorate degree. And I just don't know if I could do that. And maybe you want to go and be a doctor or a PA and you're like, I don't think I can do it. Nobody has ever gone through that much school. What is limiting you in your thoughts?
Right. And I think it is really the thinking and just thinking about even maybe financial limitations and all that it would take. Or maybe, the first 4 years was a struggle and it was a learning curve all the things. And so then you're like, there's no way
I can't go back.
That I could ever go back. I barely made it through. There's no way I could go back, and I think that that's such a limiting, I think what you learned in the first 4 years is what you could make you successful in the next,
Well, and I think you're absolutely, maybe someone's listening right now and they never went to college at all.
Yeah.
Maybe they just got out, went straight and got a vocation that made sense. But now you can tell, I need to go back and get my education. I want to go back. I was made for more. I want to challenge you that you would break those limitations that have held you back. Maybe you say, I don't have money. Listen, if I made decisions based on the money I had, we wouldn't have done anything.
Right. So true.
What I find is that money follows vision.
That's good.
So God gives you a vision for the future. Maybe it's the education, whatever it is. Maybe it's starting in a business. Look, you don't just have money and then decide you're going to start it. It's like, no, I got a vision, and you start pointing your faith towards it. You start believing, you start decreeing and declaring it. And then next thing you know, people start being attracted to what's happening in your life, and then step by step. In fact, we talked about it with this podcast. We've been working on this podcast for months.
Yeah.
And it's just little by little. We had a vision to do the filming.
Yeah, we wanted to be live and be able to do that online. And so, it just takes small steps. You don't have to get it all right immediately, but just take the small steps to get there.
And then here we are. Now we are have this video recording. We got a lot of other dreams. So what's my point? Here's my point. Don't let any limitation stop you in your thinking from doing something today to move you forward in the vision and dream that God has for your life. I want to give you this scripture. And again, I come from the background. I'm a pastor. If you're listening and you're not a Christian, that's okay. You don't have to believe to belong.
That's so good.
But you already belong to this podcast. But I will hope you would indulge me to say a few things of how I believe. Ecclesiastes chapter 2 or 10 verse 2. I love this. It's out of the Message translation. It says, wise thinking leads to right living. Stupid thinking leads to wrong living.
So simple. I love how blunt that is.
Isn't that amazing? So wise thinking leads to what? It leads to right living. Stupid thinking leads to wrong living.
Yeah.
And so do you have wise thinking taking place in your life? Well, if you do, it's going to lead to the right living that you've always wanted.
Right.
If you have stupid thinking, wrong thinking, bad thinking, negative thinking, you're going to lead to the wrong life that you want. So I want to help you really move your life forward in the way that you think. Now, this is going to be a part 2 podcast.
Yes.
So we're going to continue this conversation next week. But before we do, I do have a little bit of a challenge for you. What you got to know is that if you want to change your life, first you got to change your thoughts.
Yeah.
Let me say it like this. You'll never change your life until you change your thinking.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do?
Wow.
Well, what we have to do now is we're going to do a few things together. And then we're going to come back next week, and you and I are going to talk about some right thoughts, how to have right thoughts. Yeah. But if I'm going to change my life, I've got to change the way I think. In fact, before I give you some homework, I found this many years ago. It was a poster. It was in a school that I was a part of or went to. And I just want to say it to you, and then I'm going to give you some homework as we conclude the podcast. First, it says, sow a thought, reap an action.
I love this quote.
Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a lifestyle. Sow a lifestyle, reap your destiny.
So powerful.
Isn't that powerful? So I'm going to sow a thought, thoughts reap actions. I'm going to sow an action, action reaps a habit. I'm going to sow a habit reaps a lifestyle. I'm going to sow a lifestyle reaps your destiny. So what is he saying? He's saying whatever you've been thinking is what you're living. Your life is perfectly designed to get the results you're getting right now, today.
Yeah, just the one thought leads to your destiny.
One thought. So we're going to, so here's your homework. Okay. So we got some homework.
Ready. I love homework.
Here's a couple of things, because we don't just come to get information. We want transformation. First thing is we're going to take a 7-day challenge. So for the next 7 days, I want you to take an inventory of your thoughts. Now, we talked about the National Science Foundation has this statistic that we think of anywhere from 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts in a day.
Right.
And we talked about all that. Most of them are negative, 80% are negative, 95% are repetitive.
Right.
And so what I'm wanting us to do, if you've ever done finances and money, you don't just jump into a budget. You can make a budget.
Right.
But they'll tell you all the time, it's not really about the budget. It's about the assessing how I spend my money right now.
Right.
You think, I don't spend that much money dining out. And then you start to
track
go back
and analyze it.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 3 or 4 or 5 times I spent $500-$600 dining out. And so what do you do first? Before we change our thoughts, let's go back and just take an inventory of our thoughts.
Yeah, that's
Let's
great.
just go back and say, what's the majority of my thinking?
Right.
So keep a pad with you. Keep it on your iPhone and just tally negative thoughts, positive thoughts. What's a thought that is a reoccurring thought? Mm-hmm. What do you think when you're not thinking?
Wow.
Ooh,
Wow.
That'll get you into trouble.
Yeah.
You ever sat at a stoplight and you've gone zoned
Your
out?
mind is completely
and then
gone.
you wake up and you've had an argument or a fight
Yes.
with someone and they're not even in the car. You've already started driving. You have no idea how you got to your destination, but you've been having these thoughts.
Yeah.
So take an inventory of your thoughts. The second homework assignment is this. I'm going to ask you to limit as much negativity in your life as possible.
That's such a great tip.
Just limit it. So what are some things that are negative?
Right. I mean, I think everything. I'm sorry. Truthfully, I think it's a good amount of things. So even social media, TV, the news, man, I think
I had to stop. I had to get off news.
Yeah, I consume. I just do bite-sized consumption. I want to know what's happening in the world, but I just want an overview. I don't want to be submerged in that information. Submerged. So just all of the things that might surround you, maybe even secular movies, music that you listen to. Yeah.
So whatever you do that makes you feel worse when you leave.
Wow.
To me, that's negative. So and you know what it is. You watch TV because you done binge watched everything. So now you watch things you wouldn't normally watch.
Right.
And you feel dirty.
Yeah.
Or you're listening to news and you're like, man, I feel worse today than I've ever felt. Mm-hmm. So anything that makes you feel that, back off of it just for 7 days. I'm not telling you to quit forever and all, but just take 7 days off. Well, because you're trying to get a real litmus test of where you're at outside of the noise.
Right. And I think as you remove, maybe even if you just removed one, you'll notice what a difference that makes in your day. And then you'll be able to say, well, that's one area that was impacting the way I thought throughout the entire day.
Well, and so when you do that, here's what I would challenge you with. Replace it with things that make you feel better. Go on a walk.
Great.
Listen. So I'm a Christian. I listen to Christian music. Mm-hmm. Listen to worship. Read something that is positive.
Right.
For me, I read the Bible. It's not the only book I read, but I read it every single day. And so what are you putting in? So I'm going to replace the negative or take out the negative.
Right.
But I'm also going to try to input some positive.
Right. The replacement is so important too. Right. Just because you remove the negative noise, because it's so trained in our minds to think negatively, you have to replace it with something positive intentionally in order for there actually to be real change.
Well, and that's it. That's your 2 homework assignments. I'm gonna assess my thoughts. I'm gonna take an inventory. And then I'm going to back out of all of the negativity.
I love that.
And so if you'll do that for the next 7 days, we're going to pick back up next week, and we're going to talk specifically about how we can really start to change and transform our thoughts. Now, as we close, I do want to offer, we have a free ebook on the website, Help Unstuck.
Yep.
It's an assessment tool that's going to help you figure out, okay, I got stuck. Maybe here's a few reasons why I might have got stuck.
Yep.
And then some steps that you can take.
I think that's
forward progress. And it's absolutely free. Go to the website, you just jimkyles.com. And we just want to be a resource. This whole podcast is about resourcing you to help you take your steps forward. And a couple of the steps that we'd like for you to take is subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah.
Wherever you consume your content, just that way it's automatically delivered. Second thing is you want to teach.
Yeah, share it with somebody.
That's right.
Yeah, just talk about what you learned
today.
And just share one tidbit or one takeaway that you got.
Absolutely. And then we want you to engage in the online community. Go to Facebook, go to Instagram. Mm-hmm. My handle is Jim Kyles. What's your handle? Is it Jolea Garza?
Yeah, Jolea Garza.
Yeah, and so just go find us, go to the Unstuck handles.
Right, and then engage on the social media. So in our community, you can post comments, tell us
you
what
and
you
I are
enjoyed
checking
listening.
it out. We're constantly in there saying hi to people. Yep.
Yeah, and we see everything, so we'd love to connect with you.
Yep, and then post. We were asking for you to just post a review wherever you consume the content. Would you post a review? Give us a review. Tell us how it's impacting your life and if you enjoy it or not. And then finally, we're asking you to share the podcast. Yeah. Just share it with one person. Mm-hmm. Help us get the message out to help people get unstuck and become unstoppable. And so we can't wait till next week. Next week's going to be amazing.
Yes,
and
it's gonna be great.
We will see you back while we help you move your life forward. All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.